Good evening. My name is Kevin Gilvari. I'm the legal advisor for the Town of Southampton Youth Court Program. Youth Court is a nationwide program that takes juveniles who have committed crimes or school violations and puts them before a court of their peers. The Youth Court members are local high school students. They make up the jury, the attorneys, the judge, and all the court personnel at a youth court proceeding. The dispositions handed down by the jury are real and must be followed by the respondents. Tonight is a demonstration of a youth court trial conducted by our youth court members.
All rise. Southampton Town Youth Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge, Thomas Lennon, is presiding.
Please be seated. Good evening. On behalf of the Southampton Town Youth Court program, I want to thank each of you for being here tonight and for participating in youth court. Youth court trials are closed trials. The only persons allowed to be in the courtroom are the people involved directly in this case. If there is anyone in the courtroom who is not directly involved in this case or who has not received permission from the youth court coordinator to be present at this trial, you will need to leave at this time. Youth court is a very important obligation which should be taken seriously. Anyone present who cannot give his or her full attention to the hearing tonight will be asked to leave the courtroom. I would like to remind you that everything that occurs or is discussed in this courtroom must remain confidential, especially the name of the respondent. Anyone violating this confidentiality is subject to prosecution and will no longer be a part of the youth court program. Will the clerk please announce the case?
Southampton Youth Court case number CC178815, entitled Southampton Town v. Steve Whitman.
Will the defendant please stand and state your full name and age for the record?
John Wisman, 16 years old.
Will the defendant please stand and state your full name and age for the record?
Steve Witzman, 16 years old.
Steve Witzman, you have been charged with unlawful possession of a weapon upon school grounds is a violation, and menacing in the second degree is a Class A misdemeanor. Do you admit your guilt to these charges?
Yes.
At this time, I would like to read you your rights and tell you the advantages of taking part in a youth court process. Your rights of coming to youth court are: you have the right to a proper youth court procedure. You have the right to have a defense counsel. You have the right to have an unbiased youth court procedure. You have the right to have your parents or guardians present. Do you understand these rights?
Yes.
Your advantages in coming to youth court are: you are not sent to family court. You are not labeled a juvenile delinquent. You are judged by your peers. You do not have to pay attorney fees. You have an opportunity to learn about the justice system. You have an opportunity to serve as a jury member, to take part in the youth court process, and see how it works. You have the opportunity to join youth court as a member after these proceedings are done. Do you understand these advantages?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Weitzman. You may be seated. Will the prosecuting attorneys please stand and state your name for the record?
Gianna Fiorello, Marcelina Kopipinska.
Thank you. Will the defense attorneys please stand and state your names for the record?
Wilson Green.
Alexis Jenkins.
Thank you. Members of the jury, it is your duty to determine what disposition, if any, is fair and appropriate for the defendant. To be sure you are impartial and able to fulfill this obligation, I must ask you some questions. Please verbally respond to each question as I ask you. If your answer is yes, please raise your hand and I'll ask you some follow-up questions. Are any of you good friends, related to, or have you known the respondent for a long time?
No.
Is there a parent or guardian of the respondent here tonight?
Yes.
Please state your name for the record.
Jessica Winston.
Thank you for being here tonight. You may be seated. Will the prosecuting attorneys please stand and state your names for the record?
Gianna Fiorello, Marcelina Kopipinska.
Thank you. Will the defense attorneys please stand and state your names for the record?
Wilson Green.
Alexis Jenkins.
Thank you. Members of the jury, it is your duty to determine what disposition, if any, is fair and appropriate for the defendant. To be sure you are impartial and able to fulfill this obligation, I must ask you some questions. Please verbally respond to each question as I ask you. If your answer is yes, please raise your hand and I will ask you some follow-up questions. Are any of you good friends related to or have known the respondent for a long time?
No, Your Honor.
Have any of you had problems with or quarreled with the respondent in the past, whether in school, neighborhood, or elsewhere?
No.
Have any of you heard anything about the respondent, whether good or bad, true or not, which might prejudice you one way or another about this case?
No.
Did any of you witness this incident, or have you heard anything about it which might prejudice you against this case?
No.
Is there any reason I have not asked you about which makes you unsure whether or not you should serve on this jury?
No.
Defense attorneys, do you accept this jury to hear this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Prosecuting attorneys, do you accept this jury to hear this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Steve Witzman, as the respondent in this case, if you have concerns about a person on the jury, you have the right to have any of the jury excused and replaced with another juror. You do not have to state a reason. Are you willing to have these people decide on your case?
Yes.
Members of the jury, there have been no objections to you serving as jurors on this case. Will the jury, all volunteers, adults, parents, and witnesses, please stand and raise your right hand to take the oath of confidentiality? Please answer with, I do. Do you solemnly declare that you will not divulge, either by written, spoken, or sign language, any information which comes to your knowledge in the course of a youth court case trial, and that you will conceal all said proceeding which may be held in your presence?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. Does the prosecution wish to make an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Proceed.
Good evening, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. The prosecution presents the case of Steve Witzman, a belligerent, easily agitated individual who put several people in harm's way. During an altercation in the lunchroom with the victim, John Franklin, Steve threatened to use his gun that he had in his backpack on John. Steve, being the hot-headed person he is, didn't even consider the consequences that would result from his actions. Not only does he have anger management issues, but he has received detention and has gotten suspended for previous outbursts. He wants to join the Marines later in life, but his GPA that's in the 70s will do him no good. Plus, the Marines don't want members that disregard the safety of others. As the prosecution, we recommend 80 hours of community service to repay the community, a mock arrest, and a jail tour to show what could happen if he continues down this path, separate written apologies to the victim and principal for their involvement in this case, and a public apology to the police officer for her dedication of time. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Will the defense please give their opening statement?
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the jury, distinguished colleagues. My partner Alexis Jenkins and I are here this evening to describe to you what happened in the incident that occurred on March 20th, 2017, as well as shed some light on the reasonings behind the respondent. On March 20th, our client, Mr. Steve Witzman, is a law-abiding citizen who was not even aware he was committing a crime. He had planned to go play airsoft with some friends after school, so he brought his airsoft gun to school. During his study hall, one of his classmates, John Franklin, started viciously taunting and physically abusing Mr. Witzman, who, for the record, has been putting up with behavior like this from John for the past year. Later that day, John purposely decided to push Steve in the lunch line. At this point, Steve was fed up with his behavior and decided to speak his mind. He told John he was going to use his airsoft gun on him. Now, members of the jury, during this case, I would like for you to keep in mind that Mr. Witzman, a 16-year-old boy, has never done anything like this before in his life. And I'd like for you to think to yourself, do you really think that Steve would have used the gun on John? Do you really think that he meant what he said when he said he was going to use the airsoft gun? And what would you do if you were being severely bullied day after day, month after month, always worrying about what somebody was going to say to you the next day at school? We, the defense, would like to ask for 20 hours of community service to help rehabilitate the community, along with one jury, to repay us for our time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Will the prosecution call their witness?
Yes, Your Honor. I call Officer Benjamin to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You can be seated.
Where do you work?
Southampton Town Police Department,
How long have you been working there?
approximately 12 years.
And what is your official job title?
I'm the juvenile aid officer within the department.
Have you dealt with cases pertaining to juveniles in the past?
Yes.
How many would you say?
I wouldn't be able to count.
Would you say that you're well versed in dealing with juveniles?
Yes.
And have any of those cases dealt with weapons?
Some of them have, yes.
How many would you say?
I wouldn't be able to count them.
How are you involved in this case?
I was one of the officers that responded to the scene when the call came in.
And who notified the police about this incident?
I believe it was the principal of the school that contacted the police department.
And what did they report?
They reported that they had a student in the building that possibly might have a weapon on him that had threatened another student.
Were you called to the scene?
I was one of the officers that responded to the scene, yes.
And specifically, how did the police handle the call?
When we arrived, they had already been bringing the student, Mr. Witzman, down to the office, and myself along with several officers. Once he was brought in, we patted him down. He did not have any weapons on him when we searched him. However, he did state that he had an airsoft gun in his backpack that was in his possession. We checked the backpack, and the airsoft gun was inside the backpack.
Okay. Was this a high priority call?
Yes, it was.
And how come it was a high priority call?
Any call that we get, whether if it's been substantiated that the weapon may be real or fake or unknown, we have to respond to it immediately. It is a priority call.
Your Honor, may I have this marked as prosecution's exhibit number 1 for identification? Could you please show prosecution's exhibit number 1 for identification to the witness? Do you recognize this piece of evidence?
Yes.
What is it?
It is the airsoft gun that was found in Mr. Whitson's backpack.
Okay. And you were called to the scene?
Yes.
And you found that piece of evidence at the scene?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I move prosecution's exhibit number 1 for identification into evidence as prosecution's exhibit number 1.
Please show the defense.
No objections, Your Honor.
Thank you.
If you were to quickly look at this gun, could you determine whether it was real or fake?
No.
Do you think that at a quick glance it looks like a real gun?
Absolutely.
Even though it's not real, could this gun still put others in harm's way?
Yes.
Could you explain how?
Whether the gun is real or fake, the victim obviously is unaware if it's real or fake, so their personal safety is still put at risk according to themselves. It's how they perceive it.
If you, a police officer, were to see someone pointing this gun at you, how would you react?
We would react as if it were a real weapon.
And what would that entail?
We would draw our weapons, and we have certain protocol of how we respond to that. Obviously, we would want to see their hands, make sure that they drop the weapon. If not, we have to respond to it with force.
Okay, no further questions.
Does the defense wish to cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor. Hi. How would you describe Steve's attitude when you interviewed him?
It was calm and stable.
Okay. Did he tell you why he had the airsoft gun?
He stated that he had brought it to school because he was going to play with friends, go airsoft with his friends after school.
Okay. Did he say he was going to use the gun on anyone?
No, that was not his intention. That's not why he brought it to school.
Okay. How old does one have to be in order to have an airsoft gun?
You have to be 16.
Okay. Would you say that Steve knew it was illegal to have the gun on school grounds?
No, but it is in their code of conduct in the
Okay.
school.
Would you say that Steve was apologetic?
Yes, he was.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Does the prosecutor wish to redirect the witness?
May we have a moment, Your Honor? To your knowledge, do you know when he first got the gun?
No, I do not know. I do not know.
Okay. But under the age of 16, it is illegal?
Yes, they are under the age of 16. They are not allowed to possess an airsoft gun.
And to your knowledge, did he still use the gun as a threat toward the victim?
Yes, he did, verbally.
And is that illegal?
Yes.
Is there a name for that sort of behavior?
Menacing second.
Okay. And what does that entail?
That entails by verbal or with a weapon to a victim, to another person, threatening them in some manner to their physical well-being.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Does the defense wish to re-cross-examine the witness?
Yes, Your Honor. You stated that Steve said he was not going to use the gun against anyone, correct?
That was not his intention, is what he had stated.
Okay. So you just said that he stated that he threatened someone when he used the gun.
Yes.
Okay, so did you interview John Franklin?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. This was not brought up in redirect.
Sustained.
Okay, did you interview the victim?
Yes.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor. Still not brought up in redirect.
Sustained.
Okay, no further questions.
You may sit down. Does the prosecution have any more witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. We call John Franklin to the stand.
State your name, please.
John Franklin?
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
How old are you?
16.
And what grade are you in?
11th grade.
And how are your grades?
Pretty good, 90s.
And how is your attendance in school?
Really good.
Do you participate in any extracurricular activities?
Yes.
And what do you participate in?
Well, I'm in the wrestling team. I do SAD. I do Boy Scouts. I want to be an Eagle Scout.
Could you explain to us what happened on March 20th of this year?
Okay, so it was lunchtime, and I was in the cafeteria, and I remember like bumping into Steve on the lunchtime by accident. And for some reason, he got really mad at me, and he told me he had a gun in his bag, and when he opened up the bag, it looked like a real gun in there. I thought it was a real gun. It looked like one of those guns you see in those rap videos, like it was like Dracos or something like that. And so I got really nervous, and then he left. I went to the principal's office and I told him he had a Draco in his bag, or what looks like, and I guess they went and got him.
So did he threaten you with the gun?
Yes.
And why did he threaten you?
I think he thought I was like busting on him or something like that. I don't really know. He just got really angry at me for no reason.
Okay. What is your situation at home like?
It's all right. I live with my grandma. It's kind of quiet.
How come you don't live with your parents?
When I was really young, my father left me, and when I was 11 years old, my mother died.
And has the lack of communication between you and your father negatively impacted your life?
Yes. I find it very quiet at home, and sometimes I get a little lonely. So I try to find my time with like the wrestling team and a bunch of after-school activities.
And how about the death of your mother? Has that hit you hard as well?
Definitely. I mean, I moved on from it, but when I was young, it really affected me.
So would you say that growing up without both of your parents in the household has been hard on you?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Getting back to the incident, did you sustain any injuries that day?
No.
And to reiterate, did Steve pull out the gun during lunch in the lunchroom?
Well, he didn't specifically pull it out of his bag, but when he opened up the bag, I could clearly see it in there. So I don't know what that constitutes. But
So you saw the gun?
I
in his
clearly
bag.
saw the gun, yes.
And he threatened to use the gun on you?
Yes.
Because of the altercation?
Mm-hmm.
And how did that make you feel?
It made me feel very nervous, and because of all this, the political climate, I just felt that it was something you don't joke about, so I went and told the principal.
Could I please show prosecution's exhibit number 1 to the witness? Was that the gun you saw on that day, March 20th?
Am I able to?
Yeah, you can open it up.
Yeah. It looks like the gun that was in his bag.
You can take it out.
Oh, I take it out? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember this yellow very specifically.
Okay, and how did you react when you saw the gun in the backpack?
I remember my heart just beating really, really fast, and I got very nervous.
Did you feel endangered?
Yes.
And at a quick glance, could you identify if the gun was real or if it was an airsoft gun?
No.
Do you think that others present in the lunchroom might have been at danger
Yes.
with that in his backpack? And could you explain why you reported this incident to the principal?
Well, I just felt that, first off, I was threatened. But secondly, just because nowadays, it's a very serious issue, and so I felt that, real or not, it must be taken into consideration by the school.
Has Steve apologized to you?
No.
Do you think you're owed an apology?
Yes.
Okay, no further questions.
Does the defense wish to cross-examine?
You're the captain of the wrestling team, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what being a captain means?
Yes.
What?
Leading your teammates through thick and thin.
Okay. So you would say your responsibility as captain is to be the leader.
Yes.
Okay. You know that being a leader means you're going to have followers, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How well do you know Steve?
Not very well.
Not very well.
I consider him like a acquaintance because I definitely joke around with him a bunch.
Joke around with him.
Mm-hmm.
As in how?
Well, I see him in study hall, so me and my friends, we talk every once in a while.
What do you say to him?
Well, we talk about airsoft, we talk about the lifting room.
Okay. Do you recall saying things such as weirdo and fag?
No.
Not at all.
Maybe we were talking about something else, but I don't remember that.
Okay. Do you recall pushing him in the hallways?
No.
Do you recall, on the day of March 20th of this year, spitting spitballs at him through a straw?
No, I do not remember that.
Okay. Do you recall shoving him in the hallways?
Not in the hallways, no. I remember on the lunch line I bumped into him.
You bumped into him.
Yeah.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Does the prosecutor wish to redirect the witness?
May we have a moment, Your Honor?
Yeah.
May I proceed?
You may.
Do you think that reporting the incident to the principal was in favor of the individuals in the lunchroom?
Yes.
Could you explain how that would have helped them?
Well, from what I think, if Steve took the gun out of the bag, it just would have been pure chaos. Because, like I said before, and I'll say it again, in today's political climate, you just can't joke around about stuff like that. So, with anybody having a fake gun or a real gun or any gun at school, it has to be treated seriously. So I felt that I needed to take it to the principal.
Do you think that was a form of leadership?
Yes.
How so?
Well, I felt that I was protecting those in the lunchroom from immediate danger.
Do you think that others could learn from your example that you set by reporting the incident?
Yes, because I'm sure things like this happen all across the country, and it all takes is one person to help stop a possible situation.
No further questions?
Is the defense wishing to cross-examine the witness?
Can I have a second? May I repeat? Okay. I just want to remind you that you're under oath, okay?
Yes.
Okay. So, you're a leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
A positive influence to the
Yes.
student body, correct?
Yes.
Would you say you hold a high reputation?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Well, what do you mean by the word reputation?
Reputation, like a lot of people know you for your positive influence
Yes.
at student body. Okay. Alright. So, being captain and leader, you don't think that you try to boost your reputation in any way?
Well, I find myself a very humble person,
Very humble.
and I like to surround myself with my friends, so that's how I live life.
Okay. Would you say that you try to show out to your friends to keep that high reputation?
No.
No. Okay. No further questions.
Does the prosecution have any more witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Does the defense wish to call any witnesses?
Your Honor, we'd like to call Mr. Steve Witzman to the stand.
Please state your name.
Steve Witzman.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may take a seat.
Good evening, Mr. Witzman. Could you please state for the record how old are you?
I'm 16,
What school do you go to?
Northampton.
Who do you live with?
Live with my parents. I'm adopted.
Okay. Do you have any hobbies?
Yes, I do.
And what might those be?
I like to airsoft.
Based on your experience with airsofting, do you think that you have a lot of experience handling airsoft guns?
No, this is my first year getting one because you have to be 16 to possess an airsoft gun. So, I would say yes, I know how to handle one, but do I have a lot of experience with them? No.
What happened in the incident on March 20th, 2017?
I was walking to lunch without my backpack because we have lockers in Northampton High School, and usually you put your backpack in your locker. And I was walking to lunch, and the individual, John, he bumped into me, and he called me a fag, and he said I was a weirdo, and this isn't the first time he said these things to me. A couple weeks back, he said that I probably couldn't find my way out of a wet paper bag, and I have been bullied by this individual for a while, and when you're bullied by someone who not only is supposedly a leader and a captain of a sports team and has a high notoriety in the school, you kind of start to resort to solutions to the problem, such as avoiding them or not talking to them. But with a direct conflict like that, I kind of resorted to one of the most severe solutions, and I said to him, if you don't stop bothering me, I'm going to shoot you with my airsoft gun. And I know about like the school shootings, like Nevada middle school shooting, and I know about Columbine, rest their souls. But when it gets to the point where a kid has to threaten to shoot someone with a gun in order to stop them from bullying them and making their life worse for no reason at all, that's a problem.
So how do you feel about the issue of bullying in our modern day schools?
I think it's very big. I see it all the time.
And how do you feel about John saying that you were a quote-unquote fag?
I feel offended. I haven't done anything to him. He hasn't. I'm not the only person he says this to, but that's another topic. But I do feel very offended.
Would you say that you're friends with Mr. Franklin?
No, I am not.
Okay. Now, when you were in the lunch line and Mr. Franklin came and pushed you, did you have your book bag with you?
No, I did not.
So therefore, you didn't have the gun on you at that time?
Objection, leading question.
Were you in possession of the weapon, or were you in possession of any harmful devices at that time?
No, I was not.
So, would you say that John was lying earlier on the stand?
Yes.
Now, do you think that your angry outbursts recently could stem from Mr. Franklin's vicious taunting?
Yes,
Objection, leading question.
Sustained. You can restate the question.
What consequences in your own mental health has Mr. Franklin's bullying caused you?
I was recently diagnosed as I was diagnosed depressed. I've also sorry, it's a little troubling for me to talk about this. I've had to go to counseling for anger management because all the pent up insults and aggression that I received has caused me to just bottle it all up, and I tend to not allow myself to give in to the anger, but as we're here today, obviously I did, and I understand that.
So do you understand you made a mistake?
I understand I made a mistake.
Okay. And once again, back to the last question. Who caused you this emotional distress and angry outbursts?
John did.
Thank you. That was all.
Does the prosecution have to cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor.
You don't have very stellar grades in school, do you?
Not after I started receiving
Just yes or
insults
no?
from John. Right now?
Yes.
No.
They
Well,
range
what do you define stellar?
Your grades range from 70s to 75s, correct?
At this moment, yes.
Okay. And you don't participate in any activities or sports, do you?
I do.
In what activities?
Airsoft. I play airsoft.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. You were given detention in the past for anger outbursts, correct?
Yes.
And you were suspended last year for being in a fight?
Didn't start it.
But you were in one.
Yeah, but that's just how high
Just
school
yes or
policy
no?
goes. Yes.
You've consumed alcohol before, haven't you?
Yes, with adult supervision.
The last time was last month at a parade.
At a parade. Yes, my parents were there. It was by my house.
How old are you?
I am 16.
Is it legal for you to drink?
On my property, it is.
Regardless of age, what is the drinking age in the States?
Without adult supervision and permission, it's 21.
Is that the only time you drink?
Yeah.
Okay. And you've tried an e-cig before, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, you stated you just received the airsoft gun, correct?
Yes.
However, you didn't just receive the airsoft gun, did you?
What do you mean?
You were given it a few years ago.
Yes, but I did not use it.
All right, you were still in possession of one, were you not?
No, I didn't carry it around. It wasn't mine.
If it was given to you, it is yours, is it
It
not?
was given to me when I was allowed to use it when I was 16. It was not in my room.
All right. Your parents bought you the gun, correct?
Yes.
Were they aware that it is illegal for anyone under the age of 18 to be in possession of an airsoft gun?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
16.
Are you aware it is illegal for anyone under the age of 16 to be in possession of an airsoft gun?
Yes, I am aware of that.
Okay. On March 20th of this year, the day of the incident, were you in a bad mood?
I was in a horrible mood. Distressed, depressed, yes.
Okay. Because of this, did you threaten the victim to show him your airsoft gun and that you'd use it if he didn't stop whatever he was doing?
You mean when he pushed me and called me a weirdo and a fag? Yes, I did.
Are there any other ways you could have dealt with that situation? Just yes or no?
No.
You couldn't have gone to someone?
No. I've already done that. That doesn't work.
Do you think that threats and violence are the answer?
No.
And yet, you used a threat.
Could you repeat the previous question? Please.
Do you believe that threats and violence are the answer?
To what? I don't
To
understand.
your problems?
Objection, Your Honor. This question is obviously complete nonsense and doesn't pertain to the case.
Sustained.
You used a threat to solve your issue with the victim, no?
Yes.
Do you think that threats and violence are the answer?
Depends to the extent of the problem.
You didn't show the gun during study hall, right?
No, I did not.
At lunch you were further picked on? Yes? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. And this time you showed the gun to the victim?
I did not show the gun.
Okay. At what point did the victim see the gun?
To my knowledge, he didn't. I never showed the gun to him.
Why do you think he was so alarmed?
Alarmed because he knew that he was in trouble, perhaps?
If you threatened him, if someone threatened you, would you be afraid?
If I did something wrong, I'd be afraid.
Are you saying you didn't do anything wrong?
I'm saying he did something wrong.
I'm asking you. Did you do something wrong?
Yes.
What did you do wrong?
I threatened him.
Okay. So could showing the gun to him cause him to be afraid that you might do something?
I can't answer that question. I didn't show him the gun.
I would just like to interrupt. Are you aware that you're aware that you pled guilty to menacing, correct?
Yes.
I can redo that explanation if you would like.
Okay. Yes, please.
A person is guilty of menacing in the second degree when he or she intentionally places or attempts to place another person in reasonable fear of physical injury, serious physical injury, or death by displacing a deadly weapon, dangerous instrument, or what appears to be a pistol, revolver, rifle, shotgun, machine gun, or other firearm. Menacing in the second degree is a Class A misdemeanor.
Okay.
So you might want to rethink your answers to the questions. And again, just remind you are under oath.
I'm more. Okay.
So you did not show the victim the gun at any point?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And when was this?
It was during lunch.
Okay. What exactly did you do?
I walked up to him. Well, after he pushed me and after he said the things to me, I pulled out my backpack from my locker, walked back to him, opened up my backpack, and showed him my gun, and then I threatened him.
Okay. Could this instill fear in the victim?
Yes.
Do you think this is the reason why he showed his leadership by going to the principal and informing him about the situation?
I don't know about his leadership, but I do understand why he reported it.
Okay. Your Honor, may I show prosecution's evidence one to the respondent?
Please don't hand it to the witness, just leave it, hand it to the prosecutor.
To the respondent.
Sorry, I'm here. Alright.
Okay. Is this the airsoft gun?
Yes.
And this is the gun that you showed him?
Yes.
And this could instill fear in him?
Yes.
Okay. How can you tell it's not a real gun?
There's an orange tip on it.
Okay. Do you think everybody knows that?
No.
Okay. Do you think that even though it's not a real gun, it is an issue to have that in school?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware that it's illegal to bring weapons such as that into school?
No.
Okay. Do you think at a quick glance it looks real?
Yes.
Are you aware that your school has a code of conduct?
Yes.
Did you read that code of conduct?
Yes.
Did it not state in writing that it is not allowed to bring in weapons to school?
Most likely it did. Yes.
Okay, and yet you still brought it into school.
Yes.
After you had showed the gun to the victim and he went to the principal, you were taken out to the principal's office?
Yes.
The police showed up?
Yes, 2 officers.
Okay. Did they take the gun away?
Yes, after I told them I had it.
Okay. Did they question you?
At first, no.
Okay. And after this incident, you were suspended for 3 weeks, correct?
Yes.
You wish to join the military in the future, correct?
Yes.
Do you think your grades are acceptable for being a military personnel?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think the military wants people who have a criminal background?
No.
And do you think they want individuals who put themselves into situations like these? Who cause trouble?
No.
Okay. No further questions from me.
Does the defense wish to redirect the witness?
Absolutely. Could you tell us about the fight that you were suspended for?
Am I allowed to say names or no? It was an individual in my grade. He had poured milk on my head, and I asked him to stop, and then he pushed me, and then I pushed him, and then he swung at me, and I got suspended for that.
So, the fight was started by an outside person, not you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, who was in possession of the airsoft gun up to the point of when you turned 16?
My parents.
Okay. And how long was the bullying by John been going on?
Since last year.
Sorry. Did you threaten John as a last resort to his actions?
Yes.
Would you ever do something like this again?
No.
Do you feel pressured by the prosecution to answer how they want you to answer?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Does the prosecution wish to cross-examine the witness?
1 moment, Your Honor. Okay. Just to confirm, it wasn't the victim who you quarreled with when you were suspended?
No.
Okay. Does it matter who started the fight?
Yes.
Why?
Shows aggression. Shows initiative.
Okay, does it not show aggression when you fight back?
That shows defense
Could defense be aggressive?
to an extent.
Okay. Did you feel pressured? Do you feel pressured by us, prosecution, because you lied?
Lied. When?
When you first stated that you didn't show the gun?
That was a misunderstanding. Yes, I do feel pressured.
Because you lied.
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down. Does the defense wish to call any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
At this time, the attorneys will present their closing statements to the jury. Will the defense please give their closing statement to the jury?
Yes, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Your Honor, you have just heard the case of Steve Witzman. On the day of March 20th, 2017, Steve was looking forward to hanging out with his friends after school. He was minding his business when his year-long bully started harassing him. Steve has never provoked his bully, nor has he ever fought back. On March 30th, he had had enough of his bully's harassment. Keep in mind that the victim is not the only person that has been picking on Steve. Steve was pushed past his limits. I mean, think about it. How long are you going to let someone pick on you until you can't take it anymore? Steve knows he could have handled the situation better and has apologized for his actions. But jury, this is a case of a kid who was bullied past his limits. He just desperately wanted things to stop. He did not plan on harming him or anyone else in the school. All he wanted to do was to make John stop harassing him. Steve has apologized to his parents for his actions and faced consequences at home. For this, we, the defense, recommend a disposition of 20 hours community service and one-time jury duty. Thank you.
Will the prosecution please give their closing statement to the jury?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, Your Honor, for listening to the case held here tonight. We hope we have presented you with enough detail and evidence so that you can come to a clear disposition for Steve. Now, you may have noticed Steve is not an exceptional kid from his below satisfactory grades, his pass with suspension, and his involvement in this case. On March 20th, Steve came into school and was in possession of an airsoft gun. After being disturbed by a fellow student, he threatened that he would use it on him. The alarmed victim then did the right thing and left the cafeteria in order to inform the principal about the situation. Steve was then called down, questioned about the gun, and when the police came, they confiscated it from him. The situation that he involved himself in could have been much more dangerous, and for that reason we hope you make a fair disposition. Let's also not forget that he lied here tonight on stand, first stating that he had not showed the gun to the victim, and then correcting himself after being reminded he's under oath. For this reason, we recommend 80 hours of service for the possible disruption to the community, a mock arrest and jail tour to show what could happen
if he continues down this path. An apology to, a public apology to the victim and the officer for their involvement in the case, and a one-time jury duty for our time here tonight. Thank you.
Members of the jury, the respondent, Steve Witzman, has been charged with Penal Law Section 265.06, unlawful possession of a weapon upon school grounds, and Penal Law Section 120.14, menacing in the second degree. It is your duty to determine a fair and appropriate disposition for the defendant and to be sure you remain impartial in making your decision. In deciding what disposition you will hand down tonight, you must consider only the evidence that has been presented in this court tonight. When you reach the jury room, it is important that each of you on the jury expresses your opinions with each other during the deliberations and relates to each other what you feel the disposition should be and why. Remember, it is your duty to the respondent, the victims, and the community to speak your conscience in the jury room. If you simply go along with the crowd, you are not doing your job. When you reach a majority decision, you are to inform the bailiff through a written note which will be delivered to the by the jury foreperson. Once court is back in session, the jury foreperson will announce your disposition to the court. Will everyone please rise? Will the bailiff please escort the jury to the jury room to begin their deliberations? The court will now recess while the jury is in deliberation.
All rise.
Please be seated. Who is the foreperson of the jury?
I am, Your Honor.
State your name for the record.
Alva Parker?
Has the jury reached a disposition?
Yes, we have, Your Honor.
Will the bailiff please deliver the verdict to the bench for inspection?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Will the respondent please rise and face the jury?
We, the Youth Court for the Town of Southampton, recommend the respondent receive the following constructive disposition. 1 time to serve as a juror in future youth court cases, 45 hours of community service, doing something meaningful to the respondent, 1 written apology individually to the victim and to the Southampton Town Police, a verbal apology to Mr. Whitman's parents. We also think that the respondent should receive counseling and write a 2,000-word essay concerning the history of gun violence and its modern-day implications regarding school safety. Whitman's history of being bullied and his recent issues with anger management urge that he receives mental health support through counseling. Thank you.
Steve Witzman. The members of the jury have simply done their duty here tonight and returned a disposition for you to fulfill. Their decision was a group decision and must be respected. On behalf of everyone here tonight, I wish you good luck. I do hope that your future will be filled with positive activities only, and that your role in our community and society will, from this night on, always be exemplary. At this time, I'd like to ask the bailiff to escort you and your parent to the youth court coordinator, Mr. Goveri, who will explain the obligations and conditions of your disposition. Members of the jury, I commend you on the job you have done here tonight. The disposition you handed down was fair and appropriate for the offense which has been committed. It is important that we all realize that it is necessary for society to have rules to protect us, and that it is our obligation to follow these rules. Members of the jury, attorneys, and youth court members, I thank all of you for the respect you have given the defendant and the law. At this time, we are all excused. However, remember, you have a duty to uphold the oath of confidentiality concerning these proceedings and the individuals involved here tonight. Court is now recessed.